Hey, good morning. Thank you, Walt. That was awesome. Amazing speech. Score and gentlemen just like Walt are a wealth of knowledge when you're looking to start a business. I talked to them while I was beginning out, and I found it really, really helpful. They've been down a lot of the similar roads that you're all going to go down. You know, each business, we all follow very similar paths. We're at different levels of that path, and talking to somebody that's been there already can really be beneficial. My story started 5 years prior to the back porch in Trinidad. I was a junior at Virginia Tech, and I moved to Hawaii because my family moved there. I couldn't afford to live there otherwise. And I was just surfing, kind of enjoying my summer, and doing internships because I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. And I started realizing as I was doing internships that's not figuring out what you want to do, it's figuring out what you don't want to do. And I was financial advising, I was working for Volvo Penta North America, and I appreciate the opportunities, but they just weren't for me. So I made a distinct decision to choose a path that would make me happy, something I would be passionate about, and money would be secondary, meaning I wouldn't choose that path because I would get rich quick, or it would bring me a ton of wealth or notoriety or anything like that. So I found a coffee shop in downtown Honolulu, and it was very small. It was like 600 square feet, and it was just me, the owner, and a coffee roaster. And every day I just found myself getting more and more passionate with what I was doing, and all I was doing is serving a beverage, you know, giving you guys a cup of coffee. But something that was really rewarding about it. It was like instant gratification, having someone say that was the best cup they ever had, and I really dug that. So I wanted to learn more about the business, and I started learning how to roast with the owner of the shop. But I lived about 6 miles away from the shop, and I didn't have a car, couldn't afford one. So every day I'd bike to the shop and learn how to roast for free. He couldn't afford to pay me. And so I'd bike over every day after working, you know, from 5 a.m. till 3 p.m. and then come back at 6 and learn how to roast. And as I was learning it, I didn't realize at the time, but I was surrounded by pretty incredible coffee professionals within my industry. People that were writing articles in magazines I was reading, I was sitting around a table with. And so I started picking their brains and asking them questions about, you know, sourcing and sustainability with coffee, and who to work with and who not to work with, and different roasters to go after and stuff like that. So we launched our first business when I was 23 in Hawaii, and it was called Downtown Coffee Roasters. The name of the shop I worked at was called Downtown Coffee. We focused on a coffee from the North Shore of Oahu. It's called Waialua, and not a lot of coffee people were using that coffee, and so we felt we could make a splash with it. And we would roast each evening and then head to the farmer's market on Saturday and Sunday and try to sell. Little did we know the coffee wasn't that great at the time. They're quite good now. So fast forward about 6 months, and I still needed to finish my degree. I was able to stay in Hawaii, be a full-time student at Virginia Tech, took classes at the University of Hawaii while I was pursuing the coffee thing. Virginia Tech was very understanding and kind of pushed me to go in that direction. My mentor and my boss, his wife was Japanese. He wanted to go to Japan, which has an immense coffee culture, and he wanted to help open cafes there. So I needed to finish school. He wanted to move over to Japan. And so he decided to sell the cafe. I was way too young to buy it. I didn't have any money. I didn't know how to run a cafe, honestly, like as far as taxes and everything else went. So I'd like to go back to school, finish my degree. Before I left, I started working with a Hawaiian coffee company that was vertically integrated. So they grew their own coffee, they processed their own coffee, and they roasted their own coffee, and they sold their own coffee. So this was a pretty cool model, and I was very excited to be working with them. They're considered one of the best in the world. It was a great learning experience. I was able to evaluate coffee closer than I ever was at the roast level. And I was working with farms on the Big Island of Hawaii, in Maui and Kauai. And before long, I was back in Hawaii after I finished my degree, and I was working for them as a wholesaler. Hawaiian life can be a little slow. It can be a little bit, we'll do it tomorrow, brother, that kind of mentality. And I'm from the East Coast, and so we're kind of hustlers. We like to get it. So I had intentions to come back east, and I wanted to own my own thing. So when I came here, I was still wholesaling for this company. We worked with Neiman Marcus and Ruth Chris and in Hawaii, and so when I came here, those were the first accounts I was going after. I started landing these accounts, and so I was gaining more confidence as I was selling. But I was pushing someone else's brand, right? I hadn't developed my own or anything. And but in the back of my mind, I felt like I always would. I was landing these accounts, and unfortunately, the company just couldn't fulfill the orders. And so that was very frustrating. You know, you land a sale and then find out you can't make it happen. So then I decided to maybe try my hand at it, and if I had more control, maybe I could fulfill orders as they rolled in. And that was a scary jump. I mean, I was working at 2 coffee shops. I was wholesaling for this company I had worked for in Hawaii at the time, and now I was going to try my own thing. It was almost as if I was using the other roles, the other jobs I was doing as like a barrier, like keeping me from going that extra step. It's taking a jump off the cliff. So the bosses of the 2 shops I worked at, I think I called in sick on Mother's Day to hang out with my mom, so I got let go of that shop, which I thought was atrocious. I was like, without me you fail. False. They're fine. They did great. They're an excellent shop, and maybe quality went down a little bit, but that's it. And then the other one, I told them I was going to Colombia to try to source coffee from Latin America. And when I got back, I wouldn't need the position. And I got wet feet, and I was like, well, maybe I'll stick around. They're like, sorry, we already filled your spot. All right, so I wake up and don't have a job. I have an idea what I want to do, but it was just nerve-wracking. So I was kind of forced off the ledge. It was the best thing that ever happened. Because I no longer could wait around. I had to get at it immediately. I had to go talk to chefs in my neighborhood, like Teddy Folkman of Granville Moors and Eric Bruner Yang of Tokyo Underground, and sample my coffees with them and get feedback, and real feedback, evaluate it for quality and like perfect things. And before long, we started landing accounts on the 8th Street corridor, and we were supplying various businesses with our coffee, which was amazing. And then we went to Colombia, and we started working with the best farms in the world in Colombia and Latin America. And people asked me before I went, like, how are you going to just go to Colombia and buy coffee? Easy, I'm just going to go to Colombia and buy coffee. I based my sourcing around this competition called the Cup of Excellence. All the best coffee farms in a coffee-producing country participate in this, and this is basically a way for the best coffee to get the best price. So I based my sourcing around it, and it was total gamble. I rolled the dice, and it worked out. It was fine. It landed us some of the best coffee in the world, and that's where a lot of our coffee today comes from, is Latin America, from those sources, not to mention Hawaii still. And so now this year I'm looking to roll the dice again. I want to head to Africa. I want to go to Ethiopia. I want to go to Kenya. I want to start bringing coffees that are world-renowned from those areas too. What I find in my business, in any business, is you got to be willing to evaluate the risk of the move you're going to make and then make it. Listen, you're going to fall down and you're going to mess up and you're going to lose money and the tax man's going to come and hit you really hard. But you bounce back. That's it. That's like what entrepreneurs do. You either look at it as a failure or you look at it as a learning curve. Everything's a learning curve. People aren't great at one thing because they woke up and they're just super talented at it. They're great because they practiced it and they got better at it day after day, and they're persistent. Walt mentioned several characteristics of entrepreneurs, and every single one's true. Persistence, hard work, stay on top of everything, multitasking, and making use of your time. I find that's one of the most difficult things, right? I often tell people the main thing you learn in college is time management, and it's so true. It's extremely valuable, especially when you're an entrepreneur. You got to realize when you're wasting time, when you can use your time the best. And I'm always trying to educate myself about those things. There's a book written by a journalist called 168 Hours, and it's basically how to evaluate your week. No longer looking at your day as 24 hours, but looking at your week as 168 hours. And so think about the amount of time you have within a week, and then kind of figuring out where you're wasting time. So for a week, I looked at my everyday schedule and what I was doing to the T, and wrote down, from 9 to 10 I was doing this, from 10 to 11 I was doing that. And I was able to kind of curve my time to be more efficient and really help my business in a way to develop and grow in an amazing rate. It's been incredible. To be here right now in front of you guys is incredible to me. It really is. I would say that you should have a core goal that's greater than just getting wealthy, or owning, all your own time. Because I'll tell you what, you're going to have a lot less time when you have a business. A lot less. We're opening up my official coffee roastery, as well as our first coffee bar, with Eric Bruner Yang, who owns a very well-reclaimed ramen spot called Tokyo Underground, and a clothing manufacturer that started here in DC about 8 years ago, and they're called Durkle. I'm wearing this hat right now. Durkle started out of Will's basement in Kensington, Maryland, 9 years ago. It took him way longer to get to the point where Vigilante Coffee has gotten, but he was persistent. He just felt like he could keep going. He loved what he was doing, and he was making great clothes. And now he's internationally distributed. He's going to open his first flagship store here in Washington, D.C. with us over on 8th Street Northeast, a very up-and-coming neighborhood. But the greater good of this entire project is to make Washington, D.C. a destination. Like, you wouldn't think what we're putting over on 8th Street would be in D.C. You think New York, you think San Francisco, you think Tokyo, or somewhere amazing, London. You don't think D.C. We want you to say, why not D.C.? We want to build our city and develop it in a way that a place we want to live in. And so that's the underlying motivation for me at Vigilante Coffee and for what we're doing over on 8th Street, is building the city that we're a part of that has accepted my brand so well, and it's just, I'm so thankful for that. But having that underlying theme, that core value of why you're doing things, that will push you late in the evenings to keep on working hard. Not getting wealthy, not having tons of time to go out and do whatever you want to do, because you won't have tons of time, at least in the beginning. And you will work harder than you've ever worked, that's for sure. I think another characteristic that you failed to mention, Walt, is entrepreneurs have a hard time working for other people. I definitely did. I was the quintessential intern not to be. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You just got to find what works for you. So when you do find it, pursue it with vigor like no other. Like, this is it. Today's the day. You got to get it. I wake up every day like the rents do. Think about that phrase. Wake up every day like the rents do. You're going to wake up and you're going to go after it that much harder. You're going to push to sell yourself, meet new people, have new experiences, and you never know what's going to come back. Lightning bolts will go off in your head, and you're going to have new ideas, and you're going to grow and develop as a person, and your business is going to develop, and you're going to hit walls. You really are, for sure, but they're just learning curves. That's it. So, I mean, my one piece of advice is pick something that you are truly passionate about. And if you don't know what your passion is, you got to go figure it out. You got to try stuff. Figure out what not to do to figure out what to do. But when you do find it, just pursue it, pursue it, pursue it. Wake up like the rents do. And I promise you that the authenticity that you're putting out in the world, people will respond to. And I think that's why people respond to Vigilante Coffee, is because it is authentic. It's a representation of what I wanted to do in the city. It's a representation of myself. Every day I live that brand. Through social media, we live that. While Walt necessarily isn't an expert in the social media thing, every other aspect of business, I can guarantee that guy is. Social media is going to be second nature to our kids. It's just going to be like, no problem. For us, it's a learning curve. We got to develop and push, and it drives our businesses. And we're in an interesting time, and we have access to a wide array of people throughout the world through your social media and how you put your authentic self out there. But it must be authentic, because they will not respond to your brand, to your concept, to your idea without authenticity. But when you do find it, wake up like the rents do. Appreciate your time. I look forward to Q&A with you guys, and thank you for being a customer.